in the heart of Wraeclast's oldest myths, long before mortals shaped the world or empires rose and fell, the Asmarian people spoke of a formless world, a dormant orb, quiet and still, awaiting its creation. The myth of creation, revered by the Asmarians, tells of two celestial sisters, Solaris, the eternal sun, and Lunaris, the eternal moon. Together, they forged the foundation of Wraeclast as it is known today. It began with the orb, a sphere untouched by light or shadow, suspended in a void of potential. This was the canvas upon which the Divine Sisters would imprint their legacy. The Asmarian creation myth tells that Solaris, the elder sister, was the first to descend. Her radiant form blazed like the sun itself, illuminating the emptiness with an unrelenting fire. Solaris, driven by her fiery ambition, cast her light upon the orb, searing its surface. The land rose in jagged peaks and crumbled into deep valleys under her scorching touch. It was her fire that gave shape to the mountains and deserts, carving the contours of Wraeclast's lands. The Asmarians saw this as a divine act of creation, raw, powerful, and unyielding. Yet, Solaris's touch alone could not complete the world. Where her fire brought creation, it also brought destruction, leaving the land cracked and barren. From the darkness came her sister, Lunaris, the younger and gentler of the two. The moon goddess wept as she gazed upon the scars left by her elder sister, her tears falling upon the land. This harmonious act of creation is poetically captured in the ancient verse. A raging Solaris seared and contorted the orb's surface. A despairing Lunaris filled the scars with her tears. But there is a lesser-known part of the myth, one whispered among the Asmarians. Beneath the surface of this newly shaped world, another force stirred. Viridi, the Veiled One, lay hidden within the depths, her presence felt in the fertile soil and the first hints of life. It is said that while Solaris scorched and Lunaris soothed, it was Viridi who gave the land its potential to thrive. Viridi, the quiet third sister, wove her unseen threads through the fabric of Wraeclast, ensuring that creation could sustain itself. Her influence is subtle, seen in the first blooms of life and the resilience of the land. Though no grand temples were built in her name, relics like Viridi's finger, a sacred object said to sprout life even from barren ground, serve as reminders of her enduring role. Her role in the creation myth is one of subtlety, whispered only in the most obscure of tales. Some claim she was the first to act, crafting the formless sphere that would later become Wraeclast. Others believe her presence can still be felt in the resilience of the land, in the quiet moments of growth and renewal that persist despite the chaos of the gods and mortals. But beyond these fragments, Viridi remains an enigma, a shadow among divine luminaries, her influence hidden beneath the surface of the world she helped shape. The Asmarians revered Solaris and Lunaris not just as creators, but as the embodiment of balance. Their duality represented the cycles of the world, creation and calm, fire and water, light and shadow. Each sister had her place, and together they maintained the equilibrium that allowed life to flourish. Temporals to Solaris were adorned with gold, standing tall under the open sky to bask in her eternal light. Her worshippers praised her for her strength and the power to shape the land. Lunaris's temples, in contrast, were places of reflection and tranquility, often nestled by rivers or under the pale glow of the moon. Her followers sought her wisdom and her gentle guidance. Among the Asmarian people, the temples of Solaris stood as monuments to her radiant power. Built of gleaming stone and adorned with golden inlays, these temples were designed to reflect her eternal light. Positioned to face the rising sun, their towering spires seemed to stretch upward, as if trying to touch Solaris's own brilliance. Solaris's followers believed her to be a goddess of ambition and power, and their rituals reflected this. At dawn, the priests would climb to the highest points of the temples to perform the rites of illumination, a prayer for clarity and strength. These rituals, often accompanied by offerings of precious metals and gemstones, symbolized the pursuit of greatness and the divine fire that burns within all things. It was said that the most devout could feel Solaris's warmth in their very souls, a reminder of her omnipresent gaze. Her followers saw themselves as chosen to carry her will, their ambitions a reflection of her eternal fire. As the Asmarians expanded their reach, they dedicated their victories to Solaris, believing that her light guided their path to conquest. While Solaris's temple embodied strength and ambition, the temples of Lunaris were places of peace and introspection. Built by the water's edge or nestled in moonlit valleys, these sanctuaries embraced the goddess's gentler nature. Their silver arches and flowing designs reflected the quiet beauty of her domain, shimmering softly under her eternal glow. Lunaris's followers sought her wisdom and guidance, turning to her in times of uncertainty. The ritual of reflection was held under the full moon, where worshippers would kneel by the sacred pools to gaze into the water, seeking answers to their struggle. It was believed that Lunaris's tears, imbued with her compassion, could reveal the truth hidden within one's heart. Offerings at Lunaris's temples were simple yet meaningful. Vessels of pure water, pale flowers, and smooth stones collected from the riverbeds. These were symbols of her calm and balance, reminders of the need to temper ambition with restraint and to find peace even in the harshest times. Her followers saw her as a motherly figure, a goddess who tempered the harshness of life. It was said that those who gazed upon the moon during their darkest hours would find solace in her light, and her blessings would guide them to clarity and resolution. Though Solaris and Lunaris were revered separately, their shared myth bound them together. The Asmarians believed that the sisters' duality was the foundation of balance in the world, a cycle of day and night, fire and water, light and shadow. Neither could exist without the other, and it was this harmony that gave Wraeclast its shape and its soul. Solaris, the eternal sun, and Lunaris, the eternal moon, goddesses who once stood as paragons of light and balance in Wraeclast. Their temples were symbols of harmony, their followers devoted to the cycles of day and night. Yet, even divine harmony is not eternal. In the age of mortals, the gods awoke once more. The world of Wraeclast, shaped by divine hands, was destined to face mortal hubris. The cataclysm marked the beginning of this decay, an event that fractured the land and unleashed horrors unseen. At its heart lay thaumaturgy, the manipulation of virtue gems, crystals imbued with the power of the gods themselves. Thaumaturgy began as a study of virtue gems, relics from ancient civilizations that contained untapped power. These gems, said to carry fragments of divine energy, promised miracles to those who could unlock their secrets. But this power came at a terrible cost. Each gem carried with it a seed of corruption, a tether to forces beyond mortal comprehension. But that is a story for another day. In the ancient land of Wraeclast, the gods once stood as paragons of virtue, guiding humanity with benevolence and wisdom. Yet, the catastrophic events of the cataclysm unleashed a malevolent force known as the Beast, whose corruption seeped into the very essence of these deities. Twisted by this dark influence, the gods descended into madness, their divine intentions perverted into acts of tyranny and destruction. The people, who had once revered these celestial beings, now found themselves oppressed by the very entities they worshipped. Desperation and fear gripped the hearts of mortals as the gods' unchecked power wrought havoc across the land. During the cataclysm, the sacred temples of Wraeclast became epicenters of corruption and transformation. Solaris, goddess of ambition and creation, was among the first to succumb to the corruption unleashed by the beast. The once gentle light of the sun turned into a searing force of unchecked destruction. Her followers, once driven by aspirations of greatness, became consumed by fanaticism, their ambition twisted into a desire for domination. The Solaris Temple, once a beacon of light and order, became a fortress for the Solar Sworn. Zealous cultists who embraced the destructive aspect of their sun goddess. Clad in crimson robes, they wielded fire-based magic, summoning searing beams of light to incinerate their foes. Their devotion was absolute. Their rituals designed to invoke Solaris's wrath upon the Lunaris adherents. Even her temple guardians, the flame sentinels, transformed into monstrous constructs of living fire. These beings, born of divine energy, were relentless in their pursuit of any who dared challenge Solaris's will. Her temple, once a place of enlightenment, became a fortress of unyielding fire and death. The temple's architecture, adorned with golden motifs, now bore the scorch marks of uncontrolled infernos. Lunaris, the goddess of reflection and balance, was not spared. Her tears, once a source of healing and clarity, became poisoned by the cataclysm. The moonlight, a beacon of calm, turned cold and unfeeling, casting shadows that concealed horrors within. Her followers, the Lunaris sentinels, embraced this darkened reflection of their goddess. They called upon shadows and frost, their magic numbing the life out of their enemies. The spectral wolves they summoned were relentless, hunting any who dared intrude on Lunaris's corrupted sanctuary. Once a sanctuary dedicated to the moon goddess Lunaris, the temple's sanctity was shattered. The corridors, once filled with serene worshippers, became overrun by miscreations, grotesque beings born from twisted experiments. These abominations, with elongated limbs and contorted forms, prowled the temple's depths, attacking any who dared to intrude. The sacred pools, once symbols of peace, became tainted reservoirs of decay. Rituals conducted within the temple grew darker, their purpose no longer to seek guidance, but to amplify Lunaris's growing wrath. Her temple, too, became a battleground, a place of deathly silence broken only by the howls of her spectral servants. Piety's insidious work involved the manipulation of thaumaturgy, leading to the creation of grotesque abominations. Her experiments twisted the temple's inhabitants into monstrous forms, their humanity stripped away by the corrupting influence of virtue gems. These creatures, once devout followers, now roamed the temple's corridors, driven by a malevolent force. Among these horrors were the Gemlings, individuals implanted with virtue gems in a perverse attempt to harness their power. The process left them disfigured, their bodies riddled with crystalline growths that pulsed with a sinister light. Stripped of will, they served as relentless sentinels, attacking any who dared to intrude. Among these horrors were the mortality experimenters, deranged cultists who conducted macabre experiments on both the living and the dead. Their dark rituals aimed to unlock forbidden powers, resulting in catastrophic transformations. These experimenters wielded volatile magic capable of causing devastating explosions upon their demise, a final act of defiance against any who opposed them. The temple's once sacred chambers now served as laboratories of perversion, where the line between life and death was blurred. The air grew thick with a miasma that sapped the strength of intruders, making each step a perilous endeavor. In the heart of San, two monumental temples stood in close proximity. The Solaris Temple, dedicated to Solaris, the eternal sun, and the Lunaris Temple, devoted to Lunaris, the eternal moon. Their adjacency became a crucible for an unending conflict, as the followers of each deity engaged in relentless warfare, mirroring the celestial rivalry of their patrons. The proximity of the temples turned the surrounding areas into perpetual battlegrounds. The harbor bridge, connecting the two sanctuaries, bore the scars of countless skirmishes. Day and night, the Solar Sworn and Lunaris sentinels clashed, their elemental magics illuminating the bridge in flashes of fire and ice. This ceaseless war was not merely a physical struggle but a manifestation of ideological supremacy. Each faction believed that the ascension of their deity would restore balance to a world plunged into chaos by the cataclysm. Their unwavering faith fueled an endless cycle of violence, with neither side willing to concede.
This part contains spoilers of the Chronicles of the Path of Exile 1, so if you don't want it spoiled, you should stop here.
But it was in the midst of this unending war, when fire clashed with ice and zealots fought without end, that a figure emerged. A lone exile, cast out from their homeland and condemned to the forsaken land of Wraeclast. This exile, unknown and unremarkable to the world at the time, would one day be spoken of in whispers and reverence as the God Slayer, with the temples of Solaris and Lunaris locked in their eternal conflict. This exile stood as the one force capable of breaking the cycle. Wielding nothing but determination, skill, and the will to survive, the exile ventured into the heart of both temples, each a stronghold of divine power and mortal fanaticism. Within the Solaris Temple, the exile faced the full fury of the Sun Goddess's faithful. The Solar Sworn, armed with their fiery devotion, unleashed scorching light in an attempt to incinerate this intruder. But the exile pressed on, battling through relentless flames to claim the Sun Orb, a relic imbued with Solaris's power. And in the Lunaris Temple, beneath the cold glow of the moonlight, the exile braved the shadows. Lunaris's sentinels, cloaked in frost and silence, sought to stop this intruder with their chilling spells and spectral wolves. Yet, undeterred, the exile carved their way through the gloom to seize the moon orb, a relic that shimmered with the tears of the moon goddess. With both orbs in hand, the exile ascended to the sky shrine, where the gods themselves awaited. It was here, high above the warring temples, under a divided sky of blazing sun and cold moonlight, that the exile faced Solaris and Lunaris in their divine form, a battle not just for survival, but for the balance of the world itself. At the sky shrine, the exile stood before Solaris and Lunaris, their corrupted forms towering and divine. The sisters, once symbols of harmony, now sought to destroy all who opposed their will. The exile, undeterred, fought with unparalleled resolve, enduring the full might of fire and ice. After a fierce struggle, the exile emerged victorious, breaking the hold of corruption over the goddesses. As their divine forms faded, the balance between sun and moon was restored. And so, the endless war that consumed the temples of Solaris and Lunaris was brought to an end. The exile's journey was far from over, but the story of the God Slayer's rise would echo through Wraeclast for ages to come. A tale of courage, resilience, and the defiance of fate. The fall of Solaris and Lunaris marked a turning point in Wraeclast's history. Their temples, once symbols of divine grace, stood as monuments to the consequences of unchecked power and corruption. And the Exile, now known as the Godslayer, continued their journey, leaving behind a land forever changed by their actions. The origins of Wraeclast are steeped in the enigmatic interplay between celestial forces and eldritch horrors, a world shaped by gods and cosmic entities alike. Solaris and Lunaris, the sun and moon goddesses, symbolize the balance of creation and reflection, their myths entwined with the cycles of the land itself. Yet, deep beneath their divine harmony lies an older truth, a time when the Elder and the Shaper waged their eternal conflict in the Atlas of Worlds, a realm that may have bled its influence into Wraeclast's very fabric. Some believe that the balance maintained by Solaris and Lunaris mirrors the struggle between the Shaper's order and the Elder's insatiable hunger, hinting that the goddesses themselves might embody the echoes of this ancient cosmic war. The temples, the worship, and even the cataclysm seem to resonate with a pattern far older than the gods, rooted in the battle between creation and destruction. But that is a story for another day.